Hi everyone, welcome to Aquatics by Nature. Today's video is a bit of an impromptu video, as it wasn't a video I was expecting to make. You may know that a few days ago I posted a little video on some of my tips and experiences of taking a tank filterless, and actually the tank you're looking at the moment. Little did I know at the time that I may actually have to heed my own advice, but that's kind of how things work. As I'm sure you gather by now, things didn't quite work out as I was expecting. But as I say, that's one of those things that happens. You may have seen when I took this tank filterless, it had a bit of a sort of cloudiness to it, which I think was probably a bacterial bloom. I tested the water and everything, the ammonia was fine, nitrate was fine, everything was fine. Everything seemed perfect in the tank. But upon closer inspection, looking very closely at the tank, I noticed that first thing in the morning the fish were breathing much more heavily than they normally would. They weren't gasping or anything like that, but they were clearly sort of slightly distressed. I wasn't really comfortable seeing them like this. I tested the water again, there was still no ammonia, no nitrite or anything. So it was obviously some kind of reduction in oxygen. I think because the filter had been turned off, the tank wasn't producing enough oxygen during the day to get it all the way through the night. And the danger if this happens is that not only does the oxygen level run low, but you tend to get a build-up of CO2 at the same time. And the combination of high CO2 and low oxygen is not a very good one to have, to say the least. CO2 is a nasty gas in that situation. It damages the internal organs of your fish, potentially shortens their life, so it's not something that I really wanted to continue with. So needless to say, I abandoned the filterless at that point. A little bit really about why I think this happened, which is not as surprising as you might think. I've run this tank several times filterless for months on end in the past, but the one thing that I sort of overlooked was that at the moment the tank has a lot more fish than it had whenever I've tried to do this before. Subsequently, the oxygen demand on the tank is a lot greater. Not only that, there's quite a lot of floating plant on the tank, and the tiger lotus lily obviously has also got leaves that float, and that reduces the surface area, and it's the surface area you need for good gas exchange. So I think it's a combination of lots of little things. And whilst the fish, as I say, weren't actually gasping or anything like that, it was a little bit too close for comfort, so it wasn't something that I wanted to continue with. I think there's a few simple little lessons to learn from this. The most important one is always observe your fish. Whether you're doing the filterless tank or any tank for that matter, it's the most important thing. And if you have any concerns at all about oxygen levels and that kind of thing, looking at the way or how fast your fish are breathing is an incredibly good way of telling how good the tank is and how happy the fish are. You always find that, especially with planted tanks, and even more so with unfiltered or uncirculated tanks, the most vulnerable time is just before dawn, just before the lights come on. It's the time, as I say, the fish will be, or the tank rather, will have its lowest oxygen level and its highest CO2 level, and that's the most dangerous period. So always try and look at your fish at that time, or immediately after the lights come on is the kind of next best thing if it's in a very dark room, so you can't actually see what's going on. Fortunately, because this is an incredibly mature tank, it was a very easy fix. I simply put the filter sponges back in and turned the pump on. This tank actually doesn't have that much circulation even when the pump is on. It has a very low turnover. It's probably only, I think the pump turns over the volume of the tank every hour or two at most. It's not a huge amount. The important thing though is to have surface agitation, because that helps the gas exchange. So you want a gentle ripple, something like that, just to help it along. In emergency you can actually just put an air stone in. That will solve things pretty quickly if your fish are really gasping and really stressing like crazy. Anyway, next morning, all was well, and as you can see, even the bacterial bloom has cleared and the tank is kind of looking quite good. Oh, and the lemon tetras are going bonkers at the moment. They've been spawning like crazy all week, these lemon tetras. That's actually two boys sparring, you can see flying around at the moment. Mad little things. Sorry, sidetracked. Always a good thing to get sidetracked with fish. Anyway, while filterless tanks can be fun, definitely have their limitations. So, like any tank, they need to be observed closely. I think probably wise to say more closely than normal tanks. The question you're probably asking is, will I still keep filterless tanks? Well, yes is the answer. I actually have several other filterless tanks, but I'll certainly be watching this stocking level a lot more closely. And I think at the end of the day, they're best suited to little tiny things like shrimps, things that really have very little oxygen demand, and obviously fish that come from very sort of still waters and things, sort of labyrinth fish and things like guppies actually are pretty tolerant, that kind of thing, rice fish. Anyway, tread very carefully, my friends, and thanks for watching.